This week on Arizona Illustrated, our regional sky islands are a mecca for mushroom hunters.
My grandmother said, hey, there's this big mushroom conference in the White Mountains. Would you like to go to that? I said, well, I've never been to anything like that, but sure. And I just came out here and I fell in love with this.
I'll look back at the science and recovery after the Bighorn Fire.
The big concern here is that it was a big fire with a lot of areas of very, very high severity effects.
Creating an outdoor urban art gallery in Nogales.
The main purpose of Nogaleria was to change the narrative, like having something out there for Nogales people.
And learn why Grotto Hill is architect Bill Draper's favorite place.
I regularly visit this place to reminisce my early days and to enjoy the open vistas and sunsets that slowly set over this peaceful community.
Hello and welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara, and today we're joining you from Mount Lemmon, one of Arizona's sky islands. You know, in this region, mountains can rise more than 6,000 feet above the surrounding area. And this is also home to all kinds of plant life, animal life, and fungi. Matter of fact, back in 2019, we went to the White Mountains for the annual Arizona Mushroom Society Foray, where all kinds of mushrooms are harvested, eaten, and more.
Wow. Aren't they beautiful though?
Okay, my name is Dr. Chester Leathers. I'm a professor, retired. Well, I founded the Arizona Mushroom Club about 35 years ago. I held the office of president, treasurer, corresponding secretary, financier, etc. I enjoyed the study of mushrooms under the world's authority, Dr. Alexander Smith. He was filled with enthusiasm. I probably inherited some of that enthusiasm from him. I am still interested in fungi and mushrooms and hope to continue, although I'm 91. I hope to continue for another 10 years.
Every single one of these holes here is where a rodent dug up a truffle, or a hypogeous fungus. A hypogeous means below ground. A hypogeous fungus, and ate it. And so they eat these things and spread the spores all over. So we're just looking for that, and we're going to these places and raking back the duff. And there they are.
Look at that.
And so we can rake it back a little bit more. There's another one.
Wow.
But where you have all digs concentrated in an area like this, you have a potential for a lot of truffles.
Oh, there's another one.
There's a whole nest of them.
Wow. Cool.
And then and also once you're done, just cover that area back up. Do your landscaping, replace your divots. In a few days.
So the whole process to dyeing with mushrooms can be very simple. You have to acquire the mushrooms, and then you break them up into small pieces. And you simmer them for about an hour. And that allows all of the dye molecules to extract from the fungus and just swim around into the dye liquid. And then you put your fiber in there, and then you have dyed fiber. And these mushroom dyes work best with protein-based fibers. So we're talking wool, silk, alpaca. If you want to get into mushroom dyeing, you want to look at your protein fibers for the best results.
Who are you with?
Arizona Mushroom Society.
Okay.
We go on forays all over the place.
Okay.
This is a Cortinarius, and Cortinarius and Amanita are the two most deadly of all mushrooms.
Okay.
And so, and quartz are very hard to tell, but so you want to like just learn a few simple ones and stay with those for a while.
Right.
And the safest one is this one right here.
But they were in the same bag, so you probably wouldn't eat it anymore.
No, it's all right. It's not that. You're gonna cook it.
Okay.
You're gonna cook it well.
Yeah.
Cook that cap and eat it. And then this is nice and fresh. You could cook that, and you could even eat the stem here, but just clean it up.
Okay.
Unless it's buggy, and then just cut it off.
Most people have an association with store-bought varieties and species of mushrooms. I haven't tasted anything on the shelves that I would say compares to naturally occurring mushrooms.
These are all edible, except for I don't know, these three here, I don't know if they are. But this is all edible, yeah.
Oh, so this is a honey mushroom.
Yep, these are honeys, yep.
I do. Okay.
Where's your basket at? Cool. Oh, here. Okay, yeah, that's the mirror there.
Yeah, we found this looks like cauliflower.
But this is edible, just try a little bit of it first. Yeah, you guys did good.
You did really good.
Again, I'm an obsessive mushroom hunter, and I always have way too many mushrooms. And so I was looking for new ideas on how to use them, because even as a chef, I kind of fall back on the same ideas all the time. Another thing is that I wanted to explore, there's a lot of mushrooms that are popular in other cultures that are not popular here. Huitla coche is a fungus that grows on corn. Each little kernel gets filled with this fungus, and it's really kind of scary looking. And when American farmers find it, they basically tear out their crops because they think it's the end of the world. In Mexico, when they find it, they do a happy dance and they go to the market because they know that they can sell it for 10 times as much as they can sell the corn. So I thought it would be a fun one to share with you guys. The one edible that seems to be everywhere is the aspen bolete lexinum. And so I made this leather with a bunch of lexinum. I want you guys to taste this. Yeah, you can pass those out now. It's actually pretty dense, and it becomes a pretty filling snack if you take it with you. This one I would suspect is probably not toxic. What species is it?
This is a hat that is made from the Amadou mushroom. I got it from a guy in Romania. There's only 8 people in the world that can make this hat. I've been coming here for about 3 years already. Just basically here to learn more about mushrooms and to forage and just be part of the mycophile community. In the conference room, I have basically a table that I set up at my market in Tucson. And it's got all my extracts for pain, for anxiety, for sleep, for the immune system, for nerve regeneration. All of these extracts are mostly mushroom-based. My dad had 3 consecutive strokes, and he had partial paralysis in his body. The doctors kind of just sent him home that way and said, you know, we can't really help him get any better. Kind of destroyed his life. He went into a depression because of that. I decided that moment that I would do something to help my dad. Upon all this research that I did, I came across a mushroom called lion's mane. And he was taking the extract that I made. After 6 months, he says, son, hey, I can move my fingers again. He started moving his hand. Slowly he recovered all the parts of his body that had paralysis previously. That mushroom kind of led me to other mushrooms. And that's how I got into the mushroom thing. After my dad recovered from paralysis, my grandmother said, hey, there's this big mushroom conference in the White Mountains. Would you like to go to that? And I said, well, I've never been to anything like that, but sure. And I just came out here and I fell in love with this.
In the aftermath of the 2020 Bighorn Fire here in the Catalina Mountains, researchers saw a unique opportunity to better understand how fire impacts the delicate Sky Island ecosystem. So what can we learn about nature's resiliency in the face of such an event? Watch this next story and find out.
The Bighorn Fire is still burning in the Catalina Mountains.
11,500 acres have been burned so far.
When I was sitting down here in Tucson watching the evening news and watching the progression of the fire on the web, it began to get closer and closer to places I know and love really well, such as the high elevation forest. And I began thinking, oh my gosh, I hope it's not going to get in there. Please don't burn there. Please don't burn that forest down. There's a really interesting dynamic being a person who loves the forest and a scientist who studies it. One part of you wants to say, I love this forest, I never want it to change. And the other part of you looks at a forest that's changing and say, wow, that's interesting. I wonder why that happened that way. And when a big fire happens, you're really kind of poised on the head of a pin about which of those is going to be dominant, because it's so interesting and yet can also be so devastating.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going all the way to the U of A.
After wildfire, that's our time to get out and do research. We try to prepare for that moment by having study plots out in the mountains before fires happen. And so we have the unique opportunity to be able to return to those and look at how things have changed, not only in the short term, the first few months, but to track over many, many years how the forest recovers following a big fire.
I'd say at the first look, driving up the road doesn't look too bad until you get up to the Loma Linda area and can look down the north slopes of the mountain. That burnt very hot. It's a little devastating to just come around the mountain and see just burnt sticks as far as you can see. We're seeing bigger, larger fires many places in the Southwest. This could be a bellwether for what's going to be happening in the next couple of decades in other areas.
So we live in what's called the Sky Island bioregion. The Sky Islands are a network of more than 60 mountain ranges from northern Mexico up to the Colorado Plateau. And people often refer to them as islands because they're islands of forest surrounded by lower desert or grassland. And what that means is that each island could be a unique biological location, much like islands in the ocean. This is part of what makes the Sky Islands such a unique resource.
You can go from the low desert all the way to basically a spruce forest that feels like you're in Canada in just a matter of an hour. I just love being out there and just having a great view all the way down through the different ecosystems out to the desert.
Our field work often begins with a geographic positioning system, a GPS, because we're trying to get back to a particular location on the ground. And so we'll navigate to that point. In here under the live tree canopy in there?
Yeah, on the edge.
This could definitely work.
It's pretty good.
What we do is study the plants and animals on the ground, the soil. There's a lot of hands and knees work, very, very detailed, trying to look at every plant, looking at whether trees are regenerating, whether there are seedlings, whether the overstory trees were damaged or not, whether they are going to bounce back. We'll use tapes to measure the diameter of trees. We'll sometimes use increment cores to extract a core from the tree to look at their growth.
Yeah, that looks good. So tree rings can tell you all kinds of things about a forest, the past climate. You can match up the ring patterns to figure out exactly what ring goes with what year. And using that, you can match patterns back and back in time, basically for as long as you can find remnant woods still present on the mountains. The changes that are happening now are happening very quickly compared to change in the past. So now we're seeing major changes, burning entire mountain ranges, large severe fires in a matter of years to decades. So basically things are moving too fast for the forest to keep up in a lot of places. 2020, we're seeing fires all over the West. And basically, I think in the future, a dendrochronologist will definitely know, oh, that's a 2020 ring. You can tell there's a fire scar.
The really big important question in post-fire research right now are what are called post-fire trajectories. That is, what direction is this site going to go? Is it going to go back to being a forest with the same species and similar processes from what it was? Or is it going to go off in a different direction? There's no question that the contemporary fires we're seeing appear to be very, very different in kind from the historical fires. And the big concern here is not that this was a big fire per se, but that it was a big fire with a lot of areas of very, very high severity effects. And that, we believe, is the legacy of a century of keeping fire out of the forests. So the fuels have accumulated, and laid on top of that the unmistakable signature of climate change.
So what tree are you working on over there? T10. T10, great.
So an important question now in everybody's mind is that a permanent transition? Has that gone past a tipping point? So it's now going to be a different kind of ecosystem, not a forest, or is it just a slow bending of the curve back to becoming forest? And this is why we need this historical background to understand the Bighorn Fire that happened in the Catalinas. I have to say that the research we do really increases my appreciation for the complexity and resilience of these forests. We'll go up and study a plot, and we'll find trees that have survived. They somehow managed to make it through, and they're green on top, and they're growing. And we'll often think, how did this happen? Because this is supposed to be in the middle of a high severity patch, and yet here's life. The poet Gary Snyder once said, "Science walks in beauty." And in a sense, we can't see wildfires as always a catastrophe or a tragedy or something terrible. In fact, there's a big part of wildfire that is about renewal, and it's about resilience, and it's about adaptability. And that's actually a really positive lesson, because it means that many things that we're seeing that look like they've gotten stuck or damaged or lost irretrievably perhaps aren't that way at all. And maybe somebody will come along 50 or 100 years from now and look at our notes and understand that this was just the process of recovery at its very beginning. These are just the first few steps, and eventually the process of nature healing itself.
Next, we take you to Nogales, Arizona, to meet rapper, poet, and community organizer Priscilla Nefftys, who coined the term Nogaleria, reflecting efforts to turn the binational community of Nogales into an outdoor urban art gallery. These stories were produced outside of AZPM with editorial independence, and funding was provided by the Arizona Commission on the Arts and the Santa Cruz County American Rescue Plan Act.
Microphone check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check. Yeah, yeah. It's Neftys. Hey, I'm Priscilla Nefftys, and I'm a local rapper, artist, and community organizer here in Nogales. I've been doing hip-hop music since I was a teen. I started recording my own songs when I was 16, and that's why I feel like that time is really important. In the teenage years is when we start defining ourselves, and that's why I've committed to support, motivate our youth. I was born here in Nogales, Arizona, and I lived in Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, across the line most of my life. And I was always coming and going to school here and living there, having family over there, friends here. And that was just my border life. So when I was young, I guess I didn't understand really what it was to live in the border. because we're so close to our roots here from Mexico. We mostly all speak Spanish. We follow the traditions, you know, holidays and things like that. So it was always so present to me. And coming here to the U.S., it was not that different, you know, because really Ambos Nogales is like one big city split in half. The train crosses pretty much every day. So when it stops or it slows down, we're able to see the graffiti on the trains. And that's also something that really makes Nogales hip hop, you know, and it makes us inspired because we see art from other artists that are not in Nogales, you know, so it's like a moving gallery. When I started doing like my own history investigation, the train was the first thing that came here. That's really what brought the population to Nogales. It was built in the 1880s, and that's when like commerce started and mining around these lands. So for me, when I started doing the history investigation, it took another turn of why it's so important here in Nogales. 2018 is when we started doing some of the graffiti murals around here. That was a really big thing that we wanted to do, and that's really where the term Nogaleria came from, because we wanted to make Nogales an art gallery, an outdoor urban gallery. The main purpose of Nogaleria was to change the narrative, like having something out there for Nogales people to feel proud of being from Nogales. Charles Mingus, he was born in Nogales to a Buffalo Soldier father. He became a legend in the whole world. Like everybody knows who Charles Mingus was. And I feel like if when I was a child, they would have told me about Charles Mingus, it would have made me more inspired into the arts. Like I'm still drawn to the art world, but I feel like if it was more out there for kids, they would also be inspired. So that's why I was like, okay, Charles Mingus has to have a mural. I really envision Morley like going back to that commerce area, but in the arts. Like a lot of these spaces that are 100-year-old buildings, I feel that they can hold space for artists to like do workshops, have their studios, small galleries, and really have a lot of locally made things here, like art, handcrafts, and all kinds, you know, textiles, paintings. Think outside the box. I think that's what Morley is about.
Our Favorite Places series features Southern Arizona architects speaking thoughtfully and personally about a favorite building, place, or space in our region. Today, Bill Draper, a member of the American Institute of Architects and the president and owner of JSRA Architects, describes Grotto Hill.
Grotto Hill is located just east of the Mission San Javier del Bac on the Tohono O'odham Nation. The hill is known for a white cross placed on its peak and a small religious shrine located halfway up the walking trail. The north-facing shrine is a replica of the Grotto of Lourdes to honor the Virgin Mary, located in France. This irregularly shaped shallow cave or grotto, built in 1908, is a perfect place for prayers and reflection. I experienced this serene place while attending my first year at the College of Architecture. Moving to Tucson was my first time leaving Canyon de Chelly in northern Arizona, and visiting the nearby Tohono O'odham community gave me comfort being around fellow native people and enjoying their delicious red chili food with fry bread. Mmm. There exists a 360-degree wide panoramic view of the 4 surrounding mountains: the Santa Catalina, the Rincon, the Santa Rita, and the Tucson Mountains. The A Mountain can also be seen directly north of this wonderful site, which gave me the sense of scale of my location in relation to the U of A campus. The surrounding natural desert and fertile farmlands, along with the nearby winding Santa Cruz River that once flowed year-round, gave me an understanding of the meaning, a sense of place, and what Kevin Lynch's term, imageability, meant. I began relating and understanding the new terminology being used in design. The aesthetics and proportions of the adjacent white dove of the desert, and the grasping of Louis Sullivan's form follows function. Shade and shadow, solids and voids, texture, context, all became clear to me. The sequential approach by vehicle, then the strolling procession up Grotto Hill, reminded me of the Greeks, starting from the Agora and progressing up to the Acropolis during the festival of the Panathenea. My journey around this spiral path allowed me to experience differing three-dimensional views of the mission. And as I arrive at my destination at the node, I contemplated about my future as an architect. I regularly visit this place to reminisce my early days and to enjoy the open vistas and sunsets that slowly set over this peaceful community. Was all this knowledge always in me, and I just became aware of this knowledge while studying architecture?
Like what you're seeing on Arizona Illustrated? Then connect with us on social media for even more Arizona Illustrated. Like, follow, and subscribe to Arizona Illustrated on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. We'll see you next week for another episode. Hi, I'm Tom McNamara, host of Arizona Illustrated, and thanks for watching our entire show here on YouTube. And if you liked it, well, here are some stories from other episodes that we think you'll like.